Science and faith schism due to missed takeaway PaRaDiSe in Genesis 1:1a Aleph. No le busques tres pies al gato. As teacher and believer, I am guided by both science and faith. In following my calling, I found a way of harmonizing them and would like to share my findings. I come from a science and philosophy background wherein there's always universal principles like the law of universal gravitation explaining what keeps the universe together from an apple falling to the planets orbiting the sun is expressed in terms of mass, space, and time, or in the first principles of thought about good, beauty, and truth in philosophy, respectively. The short answer is that life is about physical, mental, and spiritual. So, what struck me most of the faith tradition was the complete absence of a single unifying principle in the Torah Bible. Certainly, the question posed by Turullols requesting, "Teach me the entire Torah while I am standing on one foot," is just a rephrasing of the Hellenic golden rule of, "That which is hateful to you, do not do unto others." But it is not the internal unifying principle by far. Shabbat 31a. The goal of science and philosophy is clearly the universal as means of reason in diversity of phenomena. In faith, the religious leadership are living in denial, adhering to the coming of the Messiah Mashiach to solve the problems of our own making. Researchers never relent trying till they drop dead, all the while in faith is driving around in the parking lot of their comfort zone. I have a question and answer and would like to engage you in conversation from my Anusi whole view. The question is, what is the takeaway of the Torah Bible? Everything has a takeaway, understood as brief principle of principles. The answer is PaRaDiSe in Genesis 1:1a Aleph. In other words, why is the world still broken even after revelation to Moses at Mount Sinai? Why? Since the whole purpose of revelation was providing us the blueprints of the social edifice. The short answer is that it's still broken because the takeaway PaRaDiSe in Genesis 1:1a Aleph was plain and simply overlooked by the sages in charge, and instead they surmised messianic coming of wait, do nothing, and get in the way. Dualism has put a chokehold on the mind of time in the world. We shouldn't let this perfect convergence of the chronic, acute, and great crises go to waste. Now that the schism is down on account of the coronavirus pandemic, is the opportune moment to overhaul and make it whole once and for all. If we wait too long, it will put back in place its control mechanisms fully operational and would have us back to business as usual, a failure. Let's give change a chance. Let's state the Anusi whole view outright. The thesis is triad parts PRD in one whole S and its respective triad of triads unfolding. There is the creator of creation S, namely GD. There is revealed D, truth, namely revelation of the Torah Bible to Moses at Mount Sinai. There is knowledge R of truth, namely the oversighted Torah Bible takeaway PaRaDiSe in Genesis 1:1a Aleph. There is understanding P of truth, namely the triad of triads, panacea path to earthly success for heavenly salvation. That is, PaRaDiSe is an acronym standing for Triad Parts PRD / one whole S of Creation Creator and the Triad of Triads Unfoldment. The initial letters signify physical P, mental R, spiritual D / secret S. The negative thesis is that the messianic coming of the Messiah Mashiach is a surmise lacking basis in the Torah Bible. The downside of messianism is that it goes against the very grain of the spirit and purpose of the revelation of the Torah to humanity to be in charge of the world. We shouldn't give in to the easy messianic impulse and do instead the rewarding creative work on a daily basis. Messianism has no basis in the Torah Bible. It's a post-Second Temple postulation. Past Messiah or not is not an issue here. I'm respectful of Christian and Jewish beliefs. It's Messianism as the coming of the Messiah Mashiach in the future is the issue. The sages simply overlooked what's at the mouth and cap in Genesis 1:1a Aleph. When you start counting numbers, you start with one from 0 and not somewhere afterwards like with 2 and so on. The cancellation or disqualification problem I'm having is that people think it's too good to be true or else too complicated to understand. If too simple, then it's too good to be true, or else If I give the long version of Kabbalah, it's too complicated to be understood. To keep it simple, I'm cancelled either way. The documentary proof of my thesis is found in my latest 3 books, namely PaRaDiSe, Human Science 101 in 2016, quote, The Principle of World Caring 2018, and recently PaRaDiSe, The Age of Unveilment 2020. If the principle of principles of the takeaway is missing, then anything said to the contrary is idolatrous, for claiming Torah is insufficient, requiring a Messiah Mashiach coming later to fix things right. No need for Messiah Mashiach. You can have it both ways. The Torah is either whole Torah or else whole Torah without the W. The Anusi don't come empty-handed to the temple. This opens a whole new chapter. With the homecoming of the Anusim after a half millennium leave of absence is reason for celebration as primeval Judaism. Anusi as both and Sephardic and Ashkenazi in the sense of genetically the former, but culturally the latter, all the while new to the field after a long sojourn. Return to creation and creator in Genesis 1:1a Aleph. Primeval Judaism, Kabbalah reception of the tradition without dualism shorting things. Away from belief in oral Torah, in prophets, and in prophets as integral part of Torah. Talking of Talmud as oral Torah is idolatry insofar as it adds or subtracts from the Torah. Away from Messianism, same can be achieved through the takeaway PaRaDiSe in Genesis 1:1a Aleph. Primeval Judaism and return to the spring of springs. There must be in the text itself the conditions of veracity, since it was written in archaic times 3,000 years ago with different references people space-time. Otherwise, opinion is king. Free for all with majority vote like a politics interest over preponderance of reason of academic research, forfeiting ever-reaching consensus. What I'm proposing is primeval Judaism, primeval faith, from the source, not so much from the field. Well, that's all, people. Usually Rick, your Charo Anusim, Mr. T, and GD Bless, Austin, Texas, capital of the world.